What's good, YouTube? We're back. Thank you guys for joining the channel. And I got to cover the Super Bowl. I mean, it was one of the most shocking results I've ever seen as a fan. And I've personally been a fan of the NFL for the better part of a decade at this point. And me personally, I was able to join some family yesterday to have a viewing party. We barbecued. We made some ribs, some chicken, some shrimp as well as some corn. And going into the game, I fully expect the Chiefs to get it done and complete the three-peat. They've been the best team in the league for over a half decade at this point, and Mahomes, at this point in his career, before 30 years old, is at worst the third best quarterback of all time, positioning himself well within the GOAT debate, especially in the upcoming 5 years. We'll see what he does in the future, but he now has his first stand game in his career, in my opinion, on his resume. The Buccaneers game in 2021, I believe that was much more because of his offensive line, which was hindered due to injuries, and he was still making many offensive plays to extend drives and help his team advance the ball down the field. And he was just showing his amazing abilities during that game, even in the many opportunities where he just was pressured all throughout the game and had no time to throw the ball. But in this game, that did not happen whatsoever. The Eagles utterly dominated as underdogs on both sides of the ball, just putting their talent out there and really just having one of the most amazing games you'll ever see from a team. We can go into these stats right now, and like the Chiefs were 257 yards, total yards, 275 yards, which is just completely misleading out of the gate when they had, looking at play by play, in the fourth quarter, they had a 75-yard touchdown and a 50-yard touchdown. So subtracting 125 yards, that is 150 yards through three quarters. And it might have not even been that close, as they just had no success. So many missed third down conversions. You never saw the Chiefs get it to third and short ever. Third and long, pretty much the entire game. They had got one first down in the first quarter, and that was their last for a very long period of time. Just no, all pressure all throughout the game, and the Eagles had never blitzed. And this was one of the Jalen Hurts' best games of his career, in my opinion. And he is a playoff performer. He knows how to win. He's very gritty, and he might be the perfect quarterback for this type of team, one that just fits in stylistically and mentally. And he really led his team to the win today. Saquon was very quiet. If we look at the box score in terms of rushing yards, 57 yards on 25 carries, 2.3 average yards per carry, but probably Saquon's worst game of the season. The Chiefs were able to keep him in check, but it did not matter. This game was 34-0 at one point, and it was just a bludgeoning. One that you will never see against the Chiefs, but this is now the second time in Mahomes' career where it's been a blowout, and much like Brady, who has never had these type of games pretty much, especially in the playoffs. These are things that Brady fans are going to try to consider when having these GOAT debates in the upcoming years, which will happen. It is already happening now. Um, but back to the Eagles, I do want to give credit where credit is due, because the Eagles front office has done such a good job at bringing young talent to fit in and win games at the highest level. Like, they've reached the mountaintop. They've done all the success in the NFL. They got it done. They got their second Super Bowl with Nick Sirianni, who a lot of people wanted fired 4 games into the season. And he was able to be the guy that brought a championship to this team. And looking back at the team stats in terms of offensively, Jalen Hurts 220 yards passing on 17 of 22 with 2 touchdowns, as well as 72 yards on the ground. The Chiefs just could not get to him. That offensive line was just so dominant against the Chiefs defensive line. He had so much time to throw the ball, to be able to survey the field. In his receiving, like Davonte Smith, most of his yards came from that big touchdown pass where the entire Chiefs defense assumed that Barkley was going to get the ball to shoot a clock, and the Eagles extended their lead. Um, and back to the defensive line. Like the young players, Cooper DeJean, Quinyon Mitchell, both rookies this season. Both are going to have multiple All Pros when it's all said and done. Jalen Carter is one of the best youngest players that I've seen, and I have not been a fan for long. But just his talent and his be able to dominate the interior of the line against any team at all times and just nonstop pressure. And Mahomes, that nonstop pressure got to him mightily, throwing 2 bad interceptions this game. And like there were some bad calls against the Chiefs, in my opinion. For example, the unnecessary roughness, the missed roughing the passer, illegal hands for the face call. The Chiefs did get some bad breaks, but this was a dominating game from the Eagles. Um, Kelce, 0 catches in the first half for the first time in his career in the playoffs, I believe. And you felt it going into halftime. That 24-0 felt a lot larger than what it actually was, just because of the performance that was happening and what we were seeing with our eyes. Right? This has never happened before. The level of Andy Reid's coaching just not working whatsoever at all planes of the field, offense, defense, special teams, and nothing was working. And in my opinion, this was a bad game from Andy Reid coaching wise, who just did not seem to adjust. Mahomes stayed back in the pocket for a long time trying to find the big play. And the I would assume that as a good quarterback, you want to adjust plays, find shorter routes to get the ball out quickly. And I understand like the amount of pressure that was being put on the quarterback. They have to adjust the tackle position in the off season, but it was just a lack of major adjustments. And if there were any, they were not impactful to the game at all. Right. So once this game got out of hand, the Eagles were able to bring their second string in the fourth quarter, and the Chiefs had got 2 big touchdowns to shorten the lead to 18. But this was not close. Like, not close. The rosters just showed such a vast difference in talent on both sides of the ball, and the Chiefs really had no chance in this game. And this has to be done with just how they came into the game. I understand that they were very confident. This was their 3rd straight Super Bowl, trying to pull off the 3P, which has never been done before. But they were not prepared. As the Eagles, they had their game plan, they stuck with it, and it proved to be successful. As they won the game in the first half. It was over by then, because at that time the Chiefs had got the ball, and I believe Mahomes turned the ball over with the first drive or a punt, and that just took all the wind out of the sails. Every hope that they had going to the second half was just erased, as they could not stop Hurts in the pocket, because every single time on a big down he escapes, he goes off for a big run. And you just love to see how successful he is, with how hard he has worked ever since Alabama, being booted for Tua in the national championship, transferring to Oklahoma where he becomes a Heisman finalist, and into the NFL, drafted I believe 31st or 32nd late in the first round, and becoming a Super Bowl MVP. So shout out to the Eagles, who just put on a master class, especially defensively. This is one of the best defensive teams that I've ever seen, and you probably will ever see. Just because, and it will be good for a very long time, as they are so young on all facets of the roster. Like, they have mastered getting these great young players out the draft early and in later rounds, and teams around the league are going to have to start seeing like the recipe, right? Obviously, you have the quarterback, which is the most important position in the NFL, but the pass rush, in my opinion, is the second, as that is what's going to negate great quarterback play in most cases. um Now the Chiefs are going to have to make a lot of adjustments offseason, because this was a roster construction issue. Now, don't get me wrong, so many players had bad games, drop balls from their receivers. Like the Hopkins one is noteworthy, which had just a bad drop on 4th down or 3rd down to bring it to 4th. Mahomes throws an interception on an underthrown ball that should not have been thrown. It was just a really bad throw, and just so many mistakes on the Chiefs side of the football. First, did throw an interception, but the Chiefs were just not able to do anything against that historic defensive front. And you'll never see a team of the Chiefs' caliber get dominated like this for a while, in my opinion. as the Eagles, they're gonna have to start paying some of their older guys. Some of the guys might have to be let go in the off season. So I do think they're gonna get worse roster ride if they do not hit as well as they had hit on this upcoming draft, which many see as a weaker draft. I don't personally see that way. I see a lot of talent in the class. They are going to get some of their lower picks, obviously, because they were one of the best teams in football this year. But I do think there's going to be a lot of value in this draft class. So I disagree with the common sentiment of it being a weaker class. Myles Garrett is going to be so valuable to so many teams, including the Eagles, who just won. Seeing just how valuable the defense is in terms of winning in the NFL, he's going to get a good amount of money, and he's going to go to a contender, a bunch of these contenders, well as the Ravens, Bills, Chiefs, Rams, Eagles, Packers. Anybody that has the money to be able to pay him well is going to be looking at trying to get him in the sweepstakes this offseason, which is going to be probably the most targeted player in draft, free agency, trade, whatever. But outside of that, the game itself, the most enjoying part of it was just seeing how great the Eagles was, as the Chiefs were not competitive at all. The 2 touchdowns they got were against the backups and just felt like worthless points. Trying to close the gap, make the score look better than it was. But anybody that's seen this game from start to finish just knows how dominated the Chiefs were. It looked like a college football game, honestly. Like you'll see against like a really top team against a lower power forward team. So Mahomes and the Chiefs, they're gonna have to come back, as this one is gonna stick with that franchise and Mahomes especially for a very long time. I see Kelce retiring this offseason, as he's getting up there over the playoffs this year. I can especially see just how much he's lost. He looks a lot slower, and he's getting up there in age, and he's put all out on the floor over his career. One of the greatest players of all time, undisputed first ballot Hall of Famer. So going out right now doesn't seem too bad. I know it would suck to go out when you lost in this terrible fashion in the Super Bowl, but I believe right now is a great time to go and just focus on all your other ventures and hang it up, because you've had a legendary career. Mahomes, obviously, he's going to be very adamant in roster construction in the offseason, as he loves to win and hates to lose. So Pat is going to be trying to figure out how to get revenge for this loss as quickly as possible, because this one is going to be a disaster on the resume. So, but no matter what happens from here on out, Patrick Mahomes will always be a Hall of Famer. But you can't escape this, as this one is going to be embedded on your career for a long, long time. But otherwise, pretty much everybody on the roster besides Saquon played well today for the Eagles, and they got it done. They were the best team in football for most of the season, behind Detroit, who collapsed in the playoffs, and they're Super Bowl champions. So really shout out to them. But I do want to get to the halftime show, which was one of the favorite ones I've personally seen. Kendrick Lamar comes out and puts on an amazing performance. Now, to be honest, when I watched it live on Fox, I was not a fan. And after seeing multiple re-uploads and editing, the audio was about 90% of that for me. Fox has continuously just screwed over artists in their live performances. I could not hear Kendrick. The music was way too loud. You could not hear what he was saying. And I thought that could have been him being quiet, but that was not the case whatsoever. As many have said that when it was available on Tubi to see the Super Bowl, he sounded much better there. And then once they edited the YouTube upload a few hours after it was originally uploaded, you could finally hear him, and that changed the whole performance for me, as Kendrick sounded really great. His set list, in my opinion, focusing on his new catalog, was a really amazing step for me, as historically you've seen so many artists come on to the halftime show and essentially just have a playlist of their greatest hits, and I completely agree with that sentiment, and I understand it. As you want to have the crowd into it. You want to have them know your songs, be able to sing, get hype, really bring energy into the whole performance overall. Kendrick, he wanted to send a message, and he did in his performance. You could tell from immediately Samuel L. Jackson dressing as Uncle Sam, and many have seen his performance similar to his Django character, um, in stylistically and thematically. But coming out of the car, the GNX playing the snippet that we first heard as the intro to his GNX album. I've been waiting on the song. I really hope it officially gets released, but if I had to predict, it's probably going to be like the starter song to his tour. So it might not be released for a month or so, as the tour rollout's going to start very soon, as we're getting into the middle of February. Um, but going from the performance of the GNX intro into Squabble Up, you could very see set the tone. Obviously, he came out with these shapes in terms of lighting. Many people have alluded to the PlayStation symbols on a controller. I've yet to really understand that. I'm going to put more research into it to try to understand why he did it. I understand like it was supposed to be like a video game or a game, and that everything really fit together with the game over after playing Not Like Us, which I did not expect him to do it. After all the backlash from UMG and Drake, between UMG and Drake, sorry, suing over the Not Like Us song, saying that UMG purposely stuffed it with botted views to up its appeared engagement, and like put it on the radio and stuff, make it seem more popular than it actually was. And this went on for a long period of time. Many have seen this as like one of the weakest moves that Drake has ever done, simply as you were in a rap battle and you very clearly lost the battle, and you ended up just going on a whole tour, essentially character assassination. Like, you just made your reputation look so much worse as a rapper that at this time nobody wants to see you as a rapper, because the respect has just been completely drained. You've completely given that respect up, and it is not going to be reacquired probably ever. And we will see. That is to be determined. But back to the show. He comes with Squabble Up, and having the dancers come out of the GNX with the and appear to be like red, white, and blue for the flag, all dressed up together. You're gonna see dancers all throughout the set list, and I think Kendrick did a really good job with the censoring, right? For example, one that I could very vividly remember was the Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, and the censoring. They did a really good job, but Kendrick censoring here, is very custom. Like, you could tell he very clearly planned what to say and when to say it, and he did a really good job of making them feel cohesive and not like super chopped up in terms of the censoring. And like, it really fit as a clean song. It's very different to what you would hear on the radio, where they just erase the curse words. But this was very hands-on in terms of performance, and it really fit with showing it on the NFL stage. And I thought that Kendrick did a great job with the censoring. And after Squabble Up, he goes into songs like Humble, DNA. Samuel Jackson has his second like major dialogue, where he talks about how it is too ghetto, and this is alluding to Kendrick's message of saying, like, black people are placed in a box in terms of their attitude and just how they can express themselves, especially when it comes into like the workplace, and historically how, like, their natural their natural culture, which is popularly alluded to, is just not suitable for the masses. And many have said like this was especially attackful towards the white audience, which I disagree completely with that sentiment. The message I felt it wasn't subtle, but it was very necessary, and it was cohesive with the entire performance, and it made sense. It wasn't just there to be there. I will say that. So you hear songs like Humble, DNA. These are like the two major like former hits that you hear, and then you're gonna hear Man at the Garden with like an acapella type backing. So I really like that. That was probably my favorite part of the performance personally. Seeing the set piece where all the guys are behind him, like snapping their fingers. It was like really impressive to see how well in a small like stage overall. I would say like that he did use a lot of part of the field, but like the center stage was like smaller than you would normally see. Many are going to compare this performance to like the superstore performances of like the last 10 to 15 years. So Beyonce, Bruno Mars, Prince, The Weeknd, Lady Gaga, like just those like stellar performances, crazy backdrops, almost like a movie set. And Kendrick's, I felt fit his style really well, and it is very different. I can't say if it's better or worse at the moment. I have to rewatch it many times over, as well as the previous ones, to fully make a decision on that. But the whole performance overall was really well done. And then like after Squabble Up DNA, he goes into the Man of Garden, Peekaboo, and then like he starts like the Not Like Us. He talks about um how he really wants to perform this song. They want to perform this song, but they love to sue. And it was a really good start. So at that moment, I made the decision and the bet that he was going to end up performing the song. I did not think he was going to cut off after making that statement on the set. SZA comes on, and I felt she did a really weak job overall. I fully assumed that she was lip syncing. That you could not hear any movement in terms of the mic, especially when she was laying on the ground making movements. You could not hear that in her breath whatsoever. So I do think it was a complete backtrack, and she was lip syncing. And for somebody that's in their prime, like somebody supposed to be at their best ability ever, and one of the biggest artists in the world, lip syncing on the biggest stage in the world is inexcusable in my opinion. And that many may disagree with that, but that is just where I stand at the moment. You cannot do that at the Super Bowl. And she did a good job overall of her performance in terms of like on the stage and stage control. Like she felt like you could feel her like you feel her demeanor and her presence. But she could have been avoided if she was going to lip sync on a live performance, which really avoids like the actual, what's the word, like the actual like liveness of it. Like you like last year, for example, when Alicia Keys had the bad voice crack, and many laughed at her, memes were all over social media. They edited on YouTube, but you felt that, right? And that is a part of the experience, live experience, and it's supposed to be memorable. So just removing that altogether with a lip syncing, um, and some may not fault her for it. I can't, it is what it is. The show is still good with or without her actually singing. But I felt for somebody of her caliber, I have a lot of respect for SZA. That was just an inexcusable thing to do overall. So, after going into like the major songs, he goes into Not Like Us. And he brings out Mustard. The whole stadium gets hype on Mustard. Uh, and it was a great ending, which he does go into TV off after this. But overall, and then he has Serena Williams dancing on the stage. And it was a really great addition. Obviously, she was Drake's ex-girlfriend. I wouldn't say she was a required piece, but it was a really great cameo, and it was a surprise. I felt like she was a good addition overall. Like she didn't feel excessive. But the whole show was amazing to me. Kendrick is just an all-time performer and great for the culture of rap music. This is going to be one of the most divisive Super Bowl halftime shows you will ever see. As you know, there's going to be a large part of the audience like, oh, this was really amazing, and a large part like, this was boring, this shouldn't have been done, Kendrick shouldn't have been on the stage. And there's going to be many in those camps, and we can agree to disagree, we can have those discussions. But in my opinion, this was just an all-time masterclass halftime show from Kendrick, being able to put his message out there, have a cohesive performance in the small 13-minute runtime that artists have. And he did a really great job with everything he did, bringing on all the guests as well, and the backup dancers. It was a really great set overall. But it was a great day, from start to finish. Like the game itself, while it wasn't like one of the best Super Bowls you ever see, I was just not competitive. It was a really great watch. You got to see the talent on both sides of the field, and you saw like the Chiefs for like the first time in 3 years, like actually stumble, just actually have nothing, no type of response, no comeback was happening at that point in the game. And like the halftime show was cherry on top. It was one of the best ones in my opinion of the last decade. So like while I haven't been watching the Super Bowl for a decade, I do like to watch the older halftime shows when I was too young to really know what was going on. Um, and it is a really great thing to do. As you see historically, like what SZA do for their time and how important they were at that time. But the whole day was great. I thought Fox did a great job broadcasting. Brady was okay. Did have some bad moments, but he really supported both sides. You know, he was really supportive of Mahomes, even in his times of error, and he gave some great calls as well. But overall, it was a great Sunday. I'm super excited going into next season. I'm going to be covering some of the off season as well, and we're going to see what teams go for it. Like my Packers, I'm not a fan of Jordan Love. I don't think he's going to be able to get it done for us for Super Bowl. I have to wait and see, obviously. But I do think we need to do really well in this draft to fill some of those options and hopefully try to find a number one receiver. I really like Jalen Reid, but I think he's a number two for us. I don't think he's gonna be a number one receiver. But we're gonna see what NFL teams do in the off season. I really thank you guys for watching this video. It has been a great start coming back in 2025. I'm having a lot of fun doing these. I hope to continue making content for this channel and for you guys. So you guys have a good one. I'll see you guys soon.